All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Mitigating Risk of a Remote Workforce. In this webinar, you will see a joint solution between SecuPi, Looker, and Snowflake. So let's start with introductions. I have here Shohei from Looker with me. Hello, Shohei.
Hey, Atalia, and everyone. This is Shohei Naren. I'm a technology partner manager at Looker. Excited to be here.
We are excited to have you here. And I'm Atalia. I'm leading the sales engineering and alliances for SecuPi. So this webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes of presentation, demonstration, and 5 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to use the Q&A chat here. And we are recording this webinar and we will send it to you at the end of the session. So let's start. So facing a new reality, right? Working from home. Even when organizations have to work remotely, for business continuity, end users are granted remote access to work using all the same business applications. Shifting activities outside of the traditional workspace introduces challenges in security and privacy compliance, since the data containing regulated customers' personal data and sensitive business information. So what are the challenges in this new reality of working from home? Increased data leakage risk comes from the added exposure of sensitive data to abuse, misuse, excessive, or unauthorized access from home. Authorized users further expose data by not adhering to proper security measures for handling their device. Those challenges applies for both admin users who has access to all and the other employees that you can control what access to give. CISOs, DPOs, application owners, and risk officers must mitigate the additional risk, ensuring remote access to applications is not abused by careless or malicious insiders, nor hijacked by hackers. But we don't want to eliminate all the access. What we do need to do is to manage and control it smartly. So how can we do it? We need to make sure our employees are logging in from a safe environment that can manage the access to the sensitive data while auditing and monitoring the database activity. For example, limit access to sensitive data outside standard business hours and from an unknown source. Block access to sensitive data through an unauthorized role or user. Also, we need to know who is accessing sensitive data, right? This is exactly the regulation requirements. So for example, blocking data exports from the application to a local file, alert on suspicious action on specific customer assets. Solutions for that can be applied with the right platforms, and here we are. We can take our eyes off when it comes to regulation. So GDPR was the first out there. Now we have the CCPA. And to be honest with you, I think that eventually it's going to be something federal. You can see even now there is other states' regulation that organizations have to comply. So let's mention 3 of them here that we can quickly and easily solve, and we will also demonstrate the 3. First one will be right of erasure, which also known as the right to be forgotten, which is preventing access to sensitive customer data which has been marked as deleted. The deletion can be soft and hard deletion. Second will be security by design or default, using a data-centric user behavior analytics for detect anomalous user behavior, application access, and request in real time. And the third one will be records of processing and breach notification with auditing and forensics. Real-time risk analysis of data flows and sensitivity level.
Great, and I think considering all of these things, it's really easy to get into an all or nothing mindset when it comes to data access, especially for remote workers in this environment. On one hand, you can clamp down by only allowing a handful of people to access data, maybe a centralized data team, if you will, or a handful of consultants, and have everyone else go through them. This seems secure because you're forcefully limiting who has physical access to data, and you can generally trust the results of the analysis since the people actually pulling the data have knowledge of the database and how to pull data correctly. But it makes it really difficult for everyone else to make decisions in their day-to-day work. Now, on the other hand, you may have really lax data access policies, which maybe make self-serving data easy, right? Because everyone gets to get their hands on whatever data they'd like to get their hands on. But you're obviously sacrificing data security in ways that end users may not even realize, like not complying with CCPA, GDPR, and other new and complex regulations that are cropping up. In addition, the data that end users are pulling may be incorrect or old, right? That's the data part. And then the way that the users analyze data, the usage of that data may be inconsistent with everyone else's analysis, leading to conflicting results and arguments over whose data is correct rather than making business decisions. Neither of these situations are a good fit for remote working environments. Now, what you want is the best of both worlds, right? You want all of the trustworthiness that comes with everyone using standardized definitions of your business metrics and having secure access, safe information, or access to all that information, but without losing the ability for people to self-serve, to answer their own questions with data in a safe and secure way. So the question is, how can Looker and SecuPi actually help you accomplish this? First of all, and we'll go from the left, Looker doesn't move any of your data into another black box like other tools. In other words, your data stays in your data warehouse. Other BI tools will often have their own server that they pull data in, which means that a lot of the benefits your database brings end up being sort of ignored, and you end up adding another potential point of failure in data security. Looker connects and executes queries directly on your database, so you have access to all the data you need without duplicating storage, duplicating data in the first place. And in the middle, secondly, Looker standardizes how queries are actually structured. Just because you open up a direct access to a database doesn't mean you've solved the self-service problem. Without proper data governance and rules on how to write queries, you'll end up with data chaos without any consistent or reliable results you could use for decision making. That's why we've created LookML, which is a modeling language for business logic and access controls to declare and curate things like table relationships, aggregations, and other business critical calculations. One more thing, the Looker platform is built to let everyone in a company get access to the data they need. On the other hand, in many circumstances, a BI tool, logging into a tool, is not where people need data the most. The fact that Looker is a web application with API coverage means that you can leverage data definitions and access it anywhere, from embedded reports, let's say you're embedding reports into Salesforce, SharePoint, or some other internal application, to custom externally facing applications built with our API. It also makes it easier to administer and monitor role-based content access, field-level, role-level filters, as well as other user activity trends.
So SecuPi is a data-centric platform that can protect your sensitive data within days with no code change or API to the application, databases, or network configuration. And this is the unique props value of SecuPi all in one solution. So how we will do it? First, by data discovery, we can identify what is the sensitive data. We don't need to classify all the data. Then we will audit and monitor the database activity. Based on the two, we can get risk scoring and accountability for all access to PII. Leverage user behavior analytics to model norm data access patterns and to compliant with the audit requirements, policy-based over regulated data. And then by fine-grained access control and policies, we can generate dynamic views to the BI application without changing the actual value at the data platform. This is very important. And also, we can use data protection techniques such as encryption, masking, anonymization, both at rest and in motion, even for the column, row, field level security with a key per column. So we can filter out some of the results and easily implement right-of erasure. And let's take a look on some use cases regards to working from home that we can solve based on full fine-grained access control that is beyond application ability. And as I mentioned, we can filter out or manipulate the data on the application layer based on any attributes. Those attributes can be user and system attributes that we can get from any type of source. For example, REST API call, Okta, Active Directory, etc. So if we will take a look at that here, you can see that in location, such as geofencing, we can filter out the result based on the user location. For the login environment, we can check which BI application you logged in from and to present you the relevant data, even based on your role and even based on authorization, because you sometimes have some employees from different locations, different environment, and even those people that are accessing to your application, but they're not part of your organization. So how Snowflake, Looker, and SecuPi are working together? Let's take a look on the architecture. First of all, let's explain the concept. So the data is uploaded to Snowflake, encrypted or in the clear, even in both. When the end user will try to access and visualize the data from Looker, in order to present the user the data based on need to know and to monitor the activity, we will put SecuPi between the two. So SecuPi can control on the user and data request and the user and data response. And if we can see the configuration where we need to install things. So SecuPi server in the middle is installed on the VPC or where your data at. There we're defining the enforcement and the remediation. Those policies will be later propagated to the agents. The agents can be the SecuPi overlay that's installed on the JSONP server and the SecuPi gateway that will be configured to Looker. So every request that will go from Looker to Snowflake will go through the gateway by an HTTP proxy request. There we will check the user data access rights and we will present back to the user the manipulated result while holding your own keys. We call it Hayok, which means that the keys are not shared, they are segregated. So the decryption applied only on the application side and on a need-to-know basis. So even when a user with an admin role can't see the data at Snowflake if it's stored at rest encryption. So to wrap up the 4 steps that you need to do in order to set your business ready to work remotely as fast as you can. First, we need to install SecuPi. Installation will be in a matter of days without touching databases or network configuration, as I mentioned, where your data is. Second, you need to know your data. You need to run a discovery model to understand what is the sensitive data, why you need to protect, and then push that data into Snowflake so the data can even be stored in an encrypted form. The third step will be to define the policies to ensure need-to-know access aligned with authorized user to solve the regulation requirements as well as inside threats on all applications.
And then last but not least, Looker then connects to Snowflake through the SecuPi gateway, obtaining access to the piece of data each Looker user has access to on an individual basis. What's cool about this is that SecuPi will actually adjust the data that's piped to Looker through Snowflake from encrypting certain fields to pre-filtering data so that each user gets access to the data set they should have access to and nothing more. And that's the wrap up of the presentation section. We'd love to dive into a demo, but before we do that, I'd like to set the stage with some context. The demo will take place across 3 tools, Looker, SecuPi, and Snowflake. We'll take a look at a sample customer dashboard using 2 personas, Jack and Jill, both customer-facing folks. And this will be done in Looker, connected to Snowflake through SecuPi. First and foremost, Looker uses JDBC connections to execute queries. But if you take a look at the host information on the right over here, if you know how Looker connects to these hosts, or if you know what a standard host for Snowflake looks like, you'll notice that we're not actually connecting directly to Snowflake, although it seems like it. Instead, we're connected to a SecuPi gateway that checks on each request first. Each Looker user, in this case, will have to log into Snowflake using OAuth first, which is a simple but important step to ensuring that your data is safe. Yeah, like this. And once you log in with OAuth, you'll have access to data based on the rules set up in SecuPi. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Talia, who will give you a quick demo.
Okay, so let's start the demonstration. As you can see here, this is a Looker dashboard, and I am logged in with a user named Jill. This is my credential for this demonstration. And I saved in my favorite a dashboard about customers overview. You will see when we will try to access that dashboard. On the backend, we are running a query, select from a customer clear table that's stored at Snowflake. We can see here that we have 1,000 customers with some result set for the customers. We can see the location of those customers from several countries. This is the regular dashboard. Now, because we have SecuPi in the middle, we can implement all those policies based on the fine-grained access control to get the user credentials and to present the user only what this user is allowed to see. So in this scenario, Jill is a person from Italy, and Jill, she is an analyst and she's an authorized user, which means that she can't be exposed to the sensitive data. At SecuPi, as you can see here, this is SecuPi server UI, which is the intuitive user interface for our server where we are defining the policies. First, you can see here that, as I told you, we can implement our policies in 4 main steps, and the most common one will be the data request. Here, I predefined some policies in order to show you the interactive of our policies with the result set. So let's enable some of the policies and see what is happening. The first policy I will enable is encrypt for unauthorized user. As I mentioned, Jill is unauthorized user, so she's not legit to see the data as it is. The second policy will be right to be forgotten, also the right to erasure, which will filter out the results of those users who ask to be forgotten. And the third policy will be filter by country. So based on the user location, we will present the results that relevant for this user only. We will save those 3 policies, and then I will go back to Looker dashboard. Here, when I will clear and cache refresh the data, you will see that on the fly, the data has changed. Now we have only 42 customers. As you can see here, the sensitive columns such as email and name, you can't see them in the clear anymore. The email is partial masked, the name is encrypted, and you can see even here that I have 3 rows of customers that ask to be forgotten. This is a SecuPi approach for self-deletion. Of course, we can filter out the result as well, so you don't need to count them for analytics perspective. SecuPi can do hard deletion as well. It's your decision, and both are okay for the regulation. And as you can see here, this user Jill has the customers only from Italy. This is what we expected with Jill. Now I will change my credential to a different user named Jack. All I need to do is to sudo that user. And as you will see in a second, the user has changed to be Jack. So we are in the same environment, just different credentials. Now, if I will go to the same dashboard I created, customer overview, and I'm running the same query from customer clear at Snowflake, Jack is someone from the United States, and Jack is authorized user, which means that he can see the data in the clear, even it's sensitive. And as we expected, now we have 689 rows. And as you can see, the email and the name that were encrypted for Jill, they are in the clear for Jack because he is authorized. And as you can see here, those users that asked to be forgotten now must as well. And here you can see that the customers are only from United States. This is how we implemented our policy based on the fine-grained access control and our policies that propagated in real time. Now, let's take a look about the monitoring and the privacy for the regulation. So in the 4 steps, yes, we could manipulate the data, but we can also, because we are in the middle, we can also get all the parameters in the request. And if we can see that the user logged in with outside of the business hours, or if the query looks suspicious with a high sensitivity score, we can even block this request before going to Snowflake. So in the dashboard, you can see here for forensics, full capability about our database monitoring. In the real-time monitoring, you can see here all the requests and all the requests here added to the request log. If we will dive into one of the requests, we can see here that we had a request from Jack. We can get all the parameters about the user. Jack, the location, the role, the query that we ran, the classified columns that took part in this query, the sensitivity risk that has for each column, even a sample of the result set that we can mask also if the customer wants. The 2 events that took part in the query, the first one will be how we manipulated the data. So here you can see how we implemented the right of erasure and the rewrite capability based on the user location. So instead of asking from Snowflake all customer clear table, we manipulated the data and asked that based on the country. We can also get user behavior analytics for the user itself. So if we will take a look on Jack, we can see here full analytics for Jack compared to his peers. So if I will choose here the last 30 days, for example, I can see here on the x-axis the time and on the y-axis the risk score. As you remember, we saw this risk score in our request log. And I can see here even Jack's activity for the last 30 days period. And that's how I can get Jack's patterns. I can filter some of the results based on each parameter. I can even configure some alerts, system alerts. So here I configured an alert that if there is a transaction with risk sensitivity between 100 to 1000, please alert me about that. In our dashboard, we can see in the analytical alerts that we have all those alerts here, exactly with all the information. The analytical alerts can be applied also outside of SecuPi for other systems. And as I mentioned, we can block and decide what action we would like to do because we are sitting in the middle. And we saw that this is how we are monitoring the database and provide you those capabilities to be compliant with the regulation. But in order to complement that, we have Looker that can provide you some insights on the BI side. And I will let Shohi to continue from here.
Fantastic, thanks, Natalia. So now that we've looked at how SecuPi provides robust data security tailored to your organization, I'd like to share a little bit about how Looker can help with that at the BI level as well. And the first thing I want to do is actually show you this login error dashboard, just to showcase the fact that just because a user has access to Looker dashboards doesn't mean that Looker is going to allow those users to access databases underneath Looker. So in our case, shohei@looker.com, my user does not have access to Snowflake, but Jack and Jill do. So we'll go back to Jill's perspective once again. I'm going to sudo in it as her. And I'll refresh this dashboard. Now let's say that as Jill, I'm looking at this dashboard and I'd like to get more information on my customers by analyzing one of these tiles further, like customer detail. Jill's an analyst. She needs more information. And she gets to come to this data exploration section. I get access to a whole host of fields, which in this case includes credit card information and social security number. Now, of course, these are sensitive fields that only a handful of users should have. And Jill could potentially click on credit card, click on run, and get data. But let's see what happens if I sudo in as Jack. Let's say that Jack should not have access to these fields, but he still needs access to most of the fields that Jill needed. Here we go. I'll log in as Jack. And I'll go back to the Explore page. And now as Jack, I can go ahead and pick and choose whatever fields that I like, but, oh, what do you know? No credit card or social security data. This is one of the many data access restrictions that data offers in the platform. In addition to this kind of column filtering or hiding, if you will, we have content access controls for saved dashboards and reports, GUI level user roles to limit where in Looker users have access, like can someone go into the development section, can someone go into the admin section, or just look at saved reports, as well as role level access controls that filter results automatically based on user login credentials. Now, in addition to administering these policies, you can also monitor user and content activity using Looker on Looker. Under the administration section, I have a number of different pages, but the user activity dashboard, if I click on it, gives you an idea of how many users there are in each role, how often they log in, or if they're logging in at all. Here we go. So if you have a whole bunch of users that have registered, but they haven't logged in the last 6 months, maybe they moved on to a new role, or maybe the login credentials got messed up somehow. But in any case, you shouldn't have those credentials as users just floating around in Looker. It's very easy, let's say, to come to the unengaged users section and take a look at when their last login was, what their last query was, and understand what happened to these user credentials. Content activity, on the other hand, tracks each piece of saved content and data explores. Now we can see, as an example, we have 5,400 total looks. A look is a saved report in Looker lingo. But if you take a look at this pie chart, it seems like more than, well, about 96% of them are unused. Do we want these unused reports to just be floating around? It could be a security problem down the line. Or if anything, it could bog down the performance of the instance. So it's probably best to contact the folks who own these looks and say, hey, it seems like you're not using this report. Do you need it, or do you mind deleting it? But at least instead of being gut-driven, thinking, well, I don't know if this dashboard provides value, so maybe we should delete it, to being data-driven about which reports to keep and which reports to delete makes the life of an administrator much easier. And just like that user section, we also have the unused content and explore list here. So you can even maybe save this and schedule it as an email report that gets sent out to each user, asking them to confirm whether a piece of data or piece of content needs to be saved or not. And that is the end of the brief demo. And to wrap up in this webinar, we've discussed how you can enable your remote teams with self-service data access while maintaining appropriate data governance and security measures in place with SecuPi and Looker, along with a quick demo. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions in the next 5 minutes or so, or provide a more customized demo offline. So with that, I'll pause and just thank everyone really for joining, and requesting that if anyone has any other questions beyond this webinar, do reach out to the Looker and SecuPi teams on our website.
There is a question, is there any performance here to implement the SecuPi rules engine? So the answers for that will be, of course, that putting something in the middle requires some performance overhead, but because of our technology, our performance won't be more than 5% overhead on the milliseconds. And this is because everything is going on the application side. plus the fact that we are supporting the chunk buckets as Snowflake implement that. And if the query is not having a sensitive data in that, we won't need to go through the gateway. We can skip it. Another question, is the data in the database encrypted? So the answer is it can be. As I mentioned, SecuPi support both approaches of data stored at rest in the clear and in an encrypted form. So by having a SecuPi agent on your ingestion piece on the ETL, you can store the data at Snowflake encrypted. Therefore, even an admin user that has access to Snowflake, he can see the data because the data will be encrypted, and the keys will be on-prem, on your KMS, outside the platform. And as I said, we will decrypt the data only on the application side with the key segregation.
Wonderful. It doesn't seem like there are any other questions on the list, but let's see. Anyone else who's got questions? If not, we can wrap the webinar up. All righty. Well, I'll take that as a no. So again, thank you so much all for taking the time to join our webinar, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you, Shohei. Thank you so much.